Welcome to Brothers-In-Flaw Sports. I am your host, Normie, and then we got our other host, Cunado, Santana down at the bottom where he, feels at home. But we got a big show planned. A lot of football news has happened over the last just week since we've been here. So, yeah, Cunado, how you doing?
Doing all right, man. How about you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Santana,
Good, man. Miss you guys.
I missed y'all too. I'm glad we're back here for another Thursday night of Brothers and Flaws. And I will add your name into the intro, Santana. That
Hey,
is
man.
the old intro. And I didn't think about it till today. And I was like, I'm not gonna have time to go home and edit it and do that.
Hey, no worries. This is y'all's baby. I'm just happy to be here.
But I'll get you in there. I'll get you in there. Well, first, biggest news. Alabama found its head coach in one day, 22 hours, and 42 minutes or something like that. I think someone did the actual time between, but Friday evening or Friday afternoon. So they hired DeBoer from Washington. So Cunyato, what you think on it?
Um, well, if it was me, if I was an Alabama fan, my first choice would have been Dan Lanning. I think I said that last week. And then I thought that number two on the list was Kalen DeBoer. And then I thought that number three on the list was Mike Norvell. And ended up getting the other two on the list raises, I believe. I actually don't know. Did Lanning get a raise?
I think so. I think they all
Lanning
got
got a
extensions.
raise, yeah.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. I mean, goodness gracious, I can't think of his name. Jimmy Sexton is the greatest agent of all time. And he
Because
just got
those two weren't the only
all.
ones that got raises either.
Yeah, Sarkisian
Oh
got
yeah,
one.
it's when like all of those people, all three of those names at least I know are his people, and each and every one of them got paid before DeBoer got announced. So obviously there's a game within the game that was happening. Um, all in all, though, I would have put DeBoer at number two on my list, and I think that it's as good a hire as you can get. I mean, is he going to be Nick Saban? Probably not. I don't think there'll be a Nick Saban in our lifetimes ever again. But I would have put him number two on my list. I mean, at an NAIA level in CU Falls, North Dakota, he was 67-3, and two of those three losses came in championships. And then his first year with Fresno State, he went 3-3, but that was in the 2020 shortened COVID year. And then he went 9-3 the next year. Got hired by Washington after the Jake. I can't think of Washington's coach before him, but anyways, his first year at Washington, 10-2, and then obviously this year 14-1, which brings his entire head coaching record to 104-12 in collegiate football, and that's pretty incredible. It doesn't really matter what level you did the majority of that at. That is hard to win at that level. So I think it was a good hire. Obviously, there's a lot of Alabama fans out there panicking because there is a max exodus of players and stuff happening right now, but I don't think that can be avoided in this day and age. But
Well,
those are my thoughts.
specifically this day and age with that particular rule that the head coach leaves, those kids have 30 days to put in their exit strategy, which leaves that particular team hamstrung when all the other teams can nitpick and grab what they want. That's a different conversation for a different time. I would like to play devil's advocate on this because I actually agree with everything you just said, Kenyatta. I think that DeBoer is going to do great. I think that you, even with whatever level of exodus you have with this team, you're still getting some really good bones, some really good structure to this. I think that he has proven to be a winner wherever he's gone. But if I could just say, you know what could be the problem here is the total 4 years of major college football head coaching, right? Like The 2 at Fresno, 2 at Washington. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and success all around. Okay, but 4 years of the 2 years at Washington, he came into Washington with good bones, and look where he got it. Brought Penix in, which would be another pro to me. He turned that person into the caliber of quarterback that he was. I've said all year that I watched Penix at Indiana and thought that guy's a good quarterback, but I never thought of him as the thrower that I watched him do this year specifically. So clearly a developer of players. But if I'm just being like, what if this was not the correct call? Only 4 years as a head coach before you come into this job. This job out of all the other jobs. You take another step up from Washington, go to, I don't know, Texas A&M or something like that. Maybe you're not so worried, but at Alabama, when for the last 17 years you have not done anything but win at the highest level that any sports program has ever won at. I think
it's ballsy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's super ballsy. And here's, again, trying to play both sides of this, because I am not a subscriber to just because you aren't from here, you can't recruit here. I think a lot of people blame Harson's lack of recruiting at Auburn because of where he came from. I don't think that's the case. I think that his issue was effort. I couldn't tell you that firsthand, obviously, but that seems to be the consensus, that he was just not an effort guy. I don't think that DeBoer takes this job without coming here knowing what his level of effort has to be when it comes to developing relationships with the high school coaches around here. He also kept plenty of guys on his staff and will continue, and brought guys onto his staff that know the area and know how to recruit here. But again, he is, just if I'm going on that other side of it, like, he's not here. He hadn't, he has yet to build that. What if that costs just that building of relationships? What if that does cost a year? What if it costs a half a year? What if it costs a year and a half? What if that does impact recruiting? Then how far back does Bama fall when you have somebody like Georgia, who Kirby is the leading candidate to take on what Nick had done for so long? Not to be a homer, but Auburn's recruiting has spiked. A&M and what they do, can you afford Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC? Can you afford to lose that half a year to year and a half of, relationship building? That is probably all bullshit. But if I were going to throw it on the other side of, like, maybe this isn't the greatest hire, those would be my knocks on it. Otherwise, 49 years old, extremely successful, winning percentage. Like, he's bringing players with him already. I think his recruiting is going to be fine. He's a quarterback developer. I think that it's a great hire. And Normie, you texted the group and said you didn't think that it had been DeBoer the whole time. I actually, because of the Jimmy Sexton stuff, I do think that they may have had him pegged the whole time.
Yeah.
And the connection being, that's neither here nor there, but I do think that may have been kind of who they wanted in the first place.
So to kind of continue on with your devil's advocate thing, if it wasn't DeBoer, out of the names left, who would you think? Because it seems like Lanning didn't really want it, Norvell didn't really want it, and Sarkisian didn't really want it. So
it seems like that on the outside from, like, our perspective, but who doesn't want? First off, I think that there are plenty of people who would not want to follow up Nick.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a given. That's an obvious. Why would you want to? But at the same time, if you're going to take the Alabama job, why would you not take it when it is at its, like, peak? It's still at its peak. Go take it and try and continue. If you're any of those names, Sark, Lanning, Norvell, I think those were, like, the big ones that wasn't DeBoer, right? I think if you're Sark, I think would have been crazy to take it. I think that Sark is in a fantastic position. You're moving in, like, why would you? You basically were Alabama as far as, like, input into the program in the Big 12. Now you're just now in the SEC. Like, I think that Sark to have taken the job would have been crazy. The other two, though, I don't know, man. Lanning, I think, is in a very similar position. He's going to the Big 10 as what he's got building at Oregon. The
one he's proven he can recruit the Southeast to Oregon already, which is insane. But
that was another point I had about DeBoer coming from over there. Like, Alabama has already started over the past 5-6 years, and I think we talked about this last week with they've already started making the California and just the West Coast area pipeline.
Mhm.
So DeBoer's already he's going to be able to bring what is already established over there. So the big one, I agree, Kenyatta landing what he's already doing, how he's already recruiting for. I mean, because he's a Southeastern guy. Norvell, though, I think Norvell, had he been offered, I think he would have been crazy not to take it. That's why I'm thinking that like a lot of these guys didn't really get like maybe Lanning. I think that maybe Lanning had a conversation, but
Yeah.
I think everybody else was really was like Jimmy Sexton be like, hold up, y'all hired DeBoer, hire my guy, but hold up, let me get these other guys some stuff. That could be bullshit. Again, I don't know. It wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me.
I 100% agree, Santana. Just based on the press conference and Greg Burns, AD for Alabama, saying it's like it doesn't matter who's number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or like whatever. That makes me think that Dan Lanning was the first call. I do think that happened. I do think that Dan Lanning was like that was the domino they wanted to fall into Alabama. When he didn't, it wouldn't shock me at all if DeBoer, just based on the how everything fell out, if DeBoer was number 2. And I don't think that that's a wrong decision. You know, like if you can't get Dan Lanning, go and get, you know, the guy who's beat Dan Lanning, I think 3-0 against Oregon right now. And does he recruit like Lanning has so far? Not yet, but that was also a quite literally non-existent Pac-12 anymore. So I think it was a move up for him. Lanning got paid. Everybody else got raises while Sexton was like, pump the brakes, like you were talking about.
What's your expectation there, Normie, Alabama fan?
Well, so that morning, Friday morning, pretty much, and Thursday night into Friday morning, it was pretty much everything was Mike Norvell. And I was just kind of like, I don't know about this guy. Like, so I was a little happy when it did become DeBoer. I think he is an up and comer, and I think that's what they wanted. They didn't. I think they really just wanted somebody kind of new, but also has that kind of. He does seem like he has more of the demeanor of Saban as well. So that kind of just down to earth, kind of humble person that has a lot of discipline, kind of things like that. But when I saw the pictures of him and his family arriving at Alabama in Tuscaloosa, all those fans there, I showed it to my wife and I was like, do you think he understands what he's gotten himself into? Like, I'm sure he kind of knew, but I don't think he for sure knew what he's getting into. But I think he's going to be pretty good. He seems really good with the media. So even if they're dogging him, I don't think he's going to like have some big flip out or anything like that. He's bringing in, some fresher, younger coaches as well, especially on the defensive side. I mean, he brought in 2 head coaches just to come to the defensive side, and he's bringing his offensive guy in. And like y'all said, bringing the players. One thing I was fine with Isaiah Bond going to the transfer portal. I was fine with it. I was like, okay, we got Laws coming up. We got younger receivers that probably just need the time out there and that just to prove themselves. So that one I was like, okay. When Caleb Downs went in,
I knew this.
I've got it circled.
That was the one that scared me.
Right here on my notes. That's a big one.
When those reports came out this weekend, I was like, oh no. Okay, I'm starting to get a little worried now because a lot of the other guys, even in every year, I mean, guys transfer from Alabama, they transfer from Auburn. And when you see a guy transfer, most of the times, what do you think? you're like, who the hell is that? I don't even know who that person is, because it's usually somebody who's not playing. So usually you're like, yeah, I don't even know who that was.
Well, for you
Okay,
guys,
whatever.
for the most part, our guys are like, yeah, would have liked to have kept him.
But yeah, when Caleb Downs went in, I got a little worried. When Proctor went in, I got very worried, because you're not really talking about, these more kind of backup or like guys that get a little time. I mean, you're talking about a freshman All-American, pretty much two freshman All-American. I think Proctor was a second team, or maybe all SEC second team, something like that. But not only were they freshmen, but they were really good. Especially Downs is going to be amazing. Like,
He's
he is,
the only freshman in Alabama football history to lead the team in tackles. With I
yes.
think 107, 109. I can't recall exactly the number, but I mean
They
that is a
announced his name
storied
a lot.
program. Like
Yes.
that means that man was around the football a lot. That was huge. And then obviously Travarius Robinson is going to Georgia, so
Mhm.
former defensive, coordinator. Just might follow the easy path there, but kind of like when I believe it was, I can't remember who the big name was, but like he's only in the portal. It doesn't mean that he's going to
Yeah. I mean, both
leave.
of
He's
them
just
are
weighing his
old.
options, and he just
Yeah.
like Santana had said, he's got a 30-day. It's like, this is my 30 days for you to re-recruit me and tell me where I should stay here.
Or for you to pay me to stay
I mean,
here.
obviously that's the difference. In fact, what I just said was bullshit. Give me more money.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it
Okay.
is.
Yeah. This team's willing to offer me $2 million. What are y'all offering? Like, but that's just that craziness that comes with the portal and NIL, and especially right now with NIL. I mean, it's the Wild West right now, because it's still in its infancy. So but those two got me a little worried, but I think we're going to be fine. I mean, Milrose coming back, some Booker's coming back on the offensive line. We got finally, I loved Roydell Williams. I wish him all the best. He ran and did good work for us, and I wish him all the best. Same with Jace McClellan. He did a lot of work for us. I wish him all the best. But I'm ready for Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I'm ready to see them, especially after that semifinal game. And it was like, okay, so we've had these guys this whole year, and we haven't done like a running back by committee with these 4 running backs. But I'm excited about them too. And I think the biggest transition is going to be for the fans. And I'm not immune to this. I'm going to go through it, because we expect a lot.
What?
Just even last
Why?
year, like for us, last year was a rebuilding year, and we were only 3 losses, or 2 losses, and we lost in overtime to the eventual national champion. Like, to us, that is a rebuilding year, and that expectation needs to be lowered, and lowered quick, because even Saban only what 7-4 in his first year and lost to Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, but this is not a comparable situation. Like, Saban is leaving at a time when Bama's still on top. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting him to go 7-3. Like, I'm thinking like, okay, y'all better be ready for that 3rd loss this year, like the 9-3.
What's
kind of
crazy,
thing.
and I said this last week, that I was shocked that Saban decided to do it this year. Not that I was shocked that he decided to do it, but this year, with so many new challenges coming to the SEC specifically, like I thought he would be, and I've never met the man, but from what I gather, he is like take every competition situation competitive situation like head on. Like he would just want to see if he could do it type situation or type deal. And to be moving into the 12-team playoffs and Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, like there are so many new hills to climb, new obstacles to, take over that I thought for sure he would give it at least one more. So yeah, is he only going to win 7 games this year? God, no. But this is the type of year where, like, yeah, get ready for that third loss, which is something that Bama has. And not to say that they will. And when I asked about expectation, like, as an Alabama fan, are you picturing playoffs? You would have to be with 12 teams, right? Like you're at least picturing playoffs. Why not at that point with the group that you just almost went to the championship with this year? Why not would you also be have expectations to make a national championship this year? Like but he's not going to be Nick Saban. Nobody is. But with the bones that he took over, why would he not be able to, I don't know, get almost exactly where you would want Nick Saban to be next year,
Yeah.
And I could be far off on that. But overall I agree with you that like Bama fans, we as football fans, like I think one of the exciting things about Nick retiring for a football fan, this isn't even coming from Auburn, but like maybe Bama won't be one of the teams that you just know is there all the time. Like we have gotten to a point in college football that has become quite boring for those of us not Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. Like these teams that are just, we know what the end of the season is going to be like. Maybe this shuffles it a little. I don't know. I really doubt it. I think that over the next, is he going to be there 17 years and win a bunch of championships in the process? Probably not. But is he going to be there 10 years and consistently win you at least 10 games, which is something that doesn't happen at the majority of programs in the country? Maybe. There's a good chance.
With the championship sprinkled in.
Absolutely. I mean, he could get it literally next year. Like it could happen next year. I mean, he gets his claws on Jalen. Like Jalen improved from week 1 to the final part of the season. What is he going to do over the offseason with this guy specifically capable? Like that's kind of his deal is offense and quarterback. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I again, going back to just the overall hire, I think that you're safe. But yeah, I think that the quote of the night is get ready for that third loss. So like it's very possible. And that's something that happens. I mean, look at LSU this year. Like, was LSU not one of the hot teams all year? Their defense was garbage. What was their final record? And they had a Heisman Trophy winner off of just, like it's hard to win in this league. And now we're adding 2 of the most historically successful teams of all time in Texas and Oklahoma. Like, yeah,
I mean, now that he's retired, there's only 2 coaches with multiple national championships that I can think of off the top of my head right now, and that's Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney. And Dabo Swinney and Clemson, do we think that they'll ever get back to where they were? So, I mean, it's, nature abhors a vacuum. Could be Kirby's time now.
Yeah.
Well, I said it that the only dam of what is keeping Kirby from being Nick was Nick, and now like there's nobody really challenging that unless it is DeBoer, or Sark. I mean, look, I think that there's a lot of positives coming in. I think that you're going to be able to see a lot more parity because of the Texas-Oklahoma ad, and not only that, just I think that Auburn is getting better. I think that A&M will be better. I didn't particularly care for Jimbo, so I had no hot. LSU is going to maintain and get better. Like I looking at some rankings. I forgot what I was looking at, but looking at SEC related rankings, and it had Auburn like below the top 10, and I'm like, damn, that sucks. But then I was looking at all the teams ahead, and I'm like, well, yeah, like, who are we going to jump? We were like just above Kentucky and like 6 spots below Missouri. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, I guess that's it. That's what we're living in now. Like, it's going to be that much more difficult to ascend and climb this conference, which is great, for us as fans. Kenyatta and I are used to having 4 or 5 losses in a year, so we'll be fine. We're welcoming you guys with open arms. Come on, bud.
Come
strap
on.
in for that 3rd, 4th loss, bud.
We've been braced for this for forever, man. Like 2010 and 2013 were just shockers.
I'm looking for a tweet from Jim Dunaway, and it was like the age group, like it's just Alabama as a whole. Like if you're this age, you've seen this many championships. If you're this age, you've seen this many championships, and like each one was no less than 4, which was just stupid, man. Like it just really goes to think, like, because we all kind of grew up when Alabama was probably at their worst. Maybe not all time worst, but definitely their worst in the last 50 years before
in the modern,
that.
yeah.
Certainly not,
their worst
Alabama football.
They're more than likely worst post Bear Bryant. Yeah. So, and that's what I grew up on. Auburn winning 6 in a row, and we had it was good times on the Plains, and I doubt that they ever get back to that level of bad, but just you think about, man, they were not great in those 8-ish years, but like just to have, if you're like 60, you've seen like 10 national championships or something crazy like that, like it's I'm going to find the tweet maybe later, but you get what I'm saying. Like you understand what I'm saying. Like there's a reason that Alabama has the expectations that they do, because it's what they do. Like football is Alabama. It's what they do.
It's fairly inarguably the greatest program in college football history at this point in time. I mean, if you want to bring in the Ivy League schools, and well, you're stupid in my opinion. Those don't count. They were playing literally just against one another. But now that like it does encompass the whole nation. Yes, Michigan is the winningest, and Notre Dame has had their heyday, where them and Alabama were kind of, neck and neck. But with what Nick Saban did, it kind of I think pushed it past and that says, once again, as an Auburn fan, so it's not crazy easy to say, from a fan point perspective, but from just as objective as I can be, yes, they're the greatest program of all time in college football history. So, yes, it is tough to think that they will just fall off the map. It is still an incredibly fertile recruiting ground, and I think DeBoer's one hell of a coach. So, 9-3 seems about like the floor. Once you see 8-5.
If you're shooting 9-3 this year, Tuscaloosa is going to burn to the ground.
Right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, and that's what needs to. As Alabama fans, we need to change that. It's Saban's not in town anymore, and then another thing that we're going to lose that I truly believe plays a part in some of these games. Maybe not all of them, but in some of these games, that Saban factor of people knowing Nick Saban's Alabama is coming here, or we're going there to play them.
Yeah.
And it's like that whole, like, was in the art of war. Like, it's not winning all your battles. It's pretty much, making your enemy too scared to even fight at all. That's supreme excellence. I think that played with Nick Saban as kind of that supreme excellence of when they stepped on the field, that team was already a lot of times already beaten, just looking over the sideline.
And it's Nick, and it's what he brought to the table as far as his recruits and who was on the sidelines with him, and how often that changed, but each thing like built on itself.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things, like you gotta lower expectations, and you gotta give him time. That's the thing too.
Also,
if in 5 years, and like Kenyatta, you said, like this starts to slip to the 8-5 or the 7-6, or 7-4. Like if it slips down to that, then it's kind of time like, okay, let's kind of, let's kind of freak out a little bit. Right now, though, especially this first year, I love Santana that you are so confident in us this next year because I'm really not. I'm not. I'm, and that's part of me trying to lower that expectation. Like, hey, go ahead. Kind of like I've past couple years, kind of like I've been where in like 21, just seeing that team and thinking, and we go in, we beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and I was like, all right, I was expecting us to go to the Sugar Bowl, play like Texas or somebody, and be outside looking in. But we actually ended up going and beating Georgia. But I knew like Georgia's getting into the playoffs, we're not beating them again. So I even got the SEC championship hat that year because I'm like, I'm not going to get a championship. So I'll get the SEC. But, going into that year, my expectations were pretty high. But by the end of the year, it was like, okay, this team did a lot better than it should have. Now, 22, I didn't believe all the hype. So for me, that I was like, okay, yeah, you know, but we almost, we lost 2 games on the last play. Like both of those could have gone either way. So I wasn't too disappointed. We ended up beating the shit out of Kansas State in the bowl game. So it's like, all right, I'm fine with that. And then like last year, after the Texas loss, I was like, got to lower these expectations. And then after USF, I was hitting the panic button a little then. I will admit, because that game that looked like a Mike Shula team. That game, I was having flashbacks and PTSD of like, holy crap, is Mike Shula on this sideline? Because this reminds me so much of a Mike Shula team.
I think that game was a statement.
Yeah, it was. And
That
that's
was
one
to
of
tell
those.
all of the Alabama fans that were talking about
Yes.
the expectations and this, that, or the other.
Well,
It's
and
like,
just
you
the
want to see the
quarterback thing.
backups? You want to see it? Okay. Like you doubt me that I'm not playing the best option.
Yep.
And so then you get the other 2 options, and one was horrible, one was okay-ish.
Well, and I agree that it could look like that, but just I don't know that he would pull something like that. I do think that it was 100% a statement to Jalen, like, "Hey, bud, get your shit together, because we're not going to make
I don't
it
think
without
those
you."
things have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We'll call him A, call him B.
I found this tweet. This from Jim Dunaway from the Next Round. It says, Alabama's never down long. If you are 60, 12 national championships. If you are 50, 10, 47, 36. And 3 different head coaches won in very different eras of college football. And that just, like, worst case scenario, like DeBoer's plane goes down on a recruiting trip tomorrow and they cancel the season. You get 3 seasons of Bama just being non-existent. They'll be back. Like it is a foundation, and it's built by people who want to win and want to be there. Like, yeah, you lose three games next year, and oh god, but you're probably going to get another championship while DeBoer's there. I would bet, if I were a gambling man.
But yeah, my expectation. But like even this year, or after Texas, the USF, and I was like, okay, I need to lower them more. but then defense started playing a lot better. Well, defense played in the USF game. Defense played an excellent game.
Yeah,
because even at the end when they got that interception and they were celebrating, I was thinking like, this is USF. What are y'all celebrating? And then I was like, wait a minute, this defense held this team to 3 points. Like they've done their job. Y'all celebrate, guys. Well, offense, I don't want to hear a peep from you, but
what a gross game that was too.
Yeah,
storming in Tampa, and there's just a lot going into that game, coming out of the Texas game, that I think that there's a whole we could discuss that entire game for an entire episode. Like,
but after all that, they picked up. Jalen got better, got more confident. Defense started stepping up. The only problem was we had a lot of close games, a lot of them. Even like the playing Arkansas, they were a threat to come back and win. The Auburn game, I mean, a lot of close ones. So,
Well, speaking of that, I just looked up their schedule. If you want to talk about the losses that they may or may not find, do you want to hear about it, Normie?
I think I've seen it. Hold on, let me. Because I can actually share it if I see it. There we go.
Because it's rough. The with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, and now how they've bumped all the SEC schedules. I've seen some that are more favorable for SEC teams. I basically ran through me and Will. Yeah, just call him Will. I don't know. I couldn't think of a nickname for him. Yeah, Will and I was did like an exercise just to see who had the roughest one, and Alabama's got one of the rougher ones that there are out there right now. Auburn doesn't have a cakewalk by any means. Like with the changing of the schedules and the addition of these two teams, it's pretty brutal. Also, I'm kind of bummed that neither Alabama team plays Texas this year, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Both of them played Oklahoma, though.
I was shocked that Alabama doesn't play a Mississippi school this year.
I don't think Auburn does either.
I mean, but I think what their reason is because we have a lot of older SEC East teams, and I think that's what they were trying to do to kind of get these games where, it's not one of these teams play once every 5 years, or it's been so long. Let's go ahead and mix them up really well, and get some non-traditional stuff on there.
Yeah, I imagine like this was like kind of like their best opportunity to shake it all up and then see how they can make it fall in the future later. But this year is just kind of not a throwaway year for scheduling, but experimental. That's what I'd say. But you get Western Kentucky, that should be a win. USF at home, that should be a win. Wisconsin's not the Wisconsin that they have been in the past, and it is at Wisconsin. And I respect Luke Fickell as a coach, so not a gimme by any means.
Should be a fun road trip for Bama fans.
Yeah.
Then you get Georgia in Bryant-Denny, and I think that they're already a -3.5 point favorite.
Yeah, before retirement, they were a 1 point favorite. Or Alabama was a 1 point favorite. After retirement, I think it's Georgia's a 2.5 or 3.5 point favorite.
So
if they drop that one at home, start listening to the naysayers.
Yeah,
I could see them start losing their shit if they drop Georgia at home.
Oh yeah,
which Nick may have done anyway, but
yeah,
new guy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, like this thing, like it could have happened under Nick's regime. It's not like this is Joe Schmo coming in. It's Georgia. Like up until this year, they literally lost one game. They were, I think, literally Bama beating them in the SEC championship away from setting the winning streak in college football. I mean, they were 2-time defending national champions, undefeated national champions at that. So it's not like Georgia's a shit program by any means. But yeah, so obviously that's your first really big test. I'd say Wisconsin is kind of a test. Georgia's a really big test.
I think the naysayers will start after the Wisconsin game, because I don't think we're going to go in there and beat the crap out of them. But especially if it's a close game, I think that's when they'll start chirping then. And then that next week, if they lose to Georgia, that's when they really come out. but I think they start chirping around the Wisconsin. Sorry, I know Alabama fan, so I know how they are. But yeah, then at Vandy, which I mean, it's Vandy, whether you get them at home or it's pretty. I know it's pretty much a home game for Alabama. That Vandy. I've been to Alabama Vandy games in Nashville, and there were more Alabama fans.
They just got New Mexico State's head coach and quarterback.
Oh,
So just by experience, watch out for those guys.
yeah. South Carolina, they're always iffy. Like, and even when they're having a bad year, they can always sneak up and beat somebody they shouldn't. Like that
They
one
just-
year they beat Clemson.
They just got Robbie Ashford. So
Yeah.
watch out for that guy.
Yeah, they are a bite you in the ass type of team, no doubt. But at least you get them and Bryant Denny. So that would be a little bit shocking, not crazy shocking, but I mean that is a run of Wisconsin. Could be dangerous. I don't think so, but could be. Georgia, obviously incredibly dangerous. Vanderbilt, if that's dangerous, then Bama has a whole laundry list of problems. Sorry, Vanderbilt. Pulling for you guys. South Carolina can bite you in the ass. And then at Tennessee. So you
At
got to
Tennessee,
go.
that's a tough one.
So, I mean, it gets rough. And then Missouri,
Yeah.
who only had 2 losses this year and really should have beat LSU. I watched that game
Yeah.
and had every opportunity, not every opportunity, but was in the game with Georgia the whole time, and they're not losing much either. And it's going to be, an incredibly tough game is what I would think. And then the next run is to Death Valley LSU. I mean, you get a little bit of a break with Messer, and then no worries, you just finish up the season with at Oklahoma, and then Auburn at home. So I'm with you there, Normie. Bama fans better probably strap in for 3 losses.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a schedule.
With a possibility of 4, depending on how good Oklahoma comes out.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at it, and I just Georgia, and then nobody else really scares me as far as what they would do to Bama. Traveling to Oklahoma and then Auburn the next week is tricky, but nah, man. I think Normie, I think talking about going to Wisconsin and not beating them the way that Bama fans think that they should beat them definitely starts agitating people. Especially if like the team just takes as long as it took to get rolling the way that it did this year, then absolutely. You say you beat Wisconsin 28-17 or something, just not something that you're expecting to beat them worse than that. Probably you don't. And so you get the boo birds and the naysayers. Georgia probably beat you by 10 if that's the case. Right. And then I think that obviously you start rolling at Vanderbilt. South Carolina probably won't be able to score that great. Tennessee will be tricky. Missouri, I mean, all of it. I mean, I can see where it can get tricky, but I don't know. I mean, Tennessee will be starting a different quarterback. LSU will be starting a different quarterback, and I don't imagine that their defense gets that much better.
Yeah,
it's probably in the best interest for Tennessee, and obviously in a worse interest for LSU for starting different quarterbacks for those 2 teams.
And then Oklahoma will be starting somebody new too. So
yeah,
I don't know. Right. And the traveling LSU, Mercer at Oklahoma, and then Auburn coming to town. Like, I don't know. I'm not sitting here thinking that Auburn's going to be a much different team than what they were this year, like in a positive manner. Losing some key guys on defense, gaining some key guys all over the field, but they'll be young and transfer. I don't know. So just something about the traveling to Death Valley, getting the Mercer game, then going to Oklahoma and then having Auburn at home, that could get dicey. Not saying which particular team does it. But realistically, I don't think this will be the year for the three loss concern.
All right. I like it. I like your enthusiasm and I like your confidence.
Look,
He's an idea man.
I've been a secret Nick. Been a secret Nick fan for so long. Like, it's hard to bet against Bama. It's just hard to look at that schedule and think that they'll do anything different than what I'm used to seeing them do. So yeah, it's a tricky schedule. But again, I mean, just adding the two teams that we added this year, going to the non-division type stuff, like it's trickier. It just is trickier. It will be for every single team. That's what I was saying earlier about seeing Auburn ranked so low. I was like, there's no way. And then just looking at the teams ahead, it's like, well, hell, who would I put ahead of, who would I put behind Auburn at this point? Yeah. It's just hard to, I mean, we don't know. It's a very tricky situation, but no, I don't think that we're looking at the immediate downfall of Bama.
No,
pull it for it.
That's definitely not what I'm saying at all. It's just like you were talking about just now, Santana. It's just it gets so much trickier now, and not just in the SEC, obviously in the Big Ten as well. Mm-hmm. Everything has changed so much. It's kind of one of the reasons why I thought Dan Lanning might have a shot to land in Tuscaloosa, because they all have to now go play the Big Ten as well. And obviously if it's not the SEC, it's the Big Ten as far as the major conference right now. And I really don't think that can hardly be debated. So I don't know. I'm excited to see it. I'm here for it. This year of college football was one of the more fun years of college football that we've had in a while, because you really didn't know for a long time. Like, obviously the power, like Alabama was still in the hunt. Georgia was always in the hunt until the SEC championship. Florida State moved themselves up into the hunt. They might have gotten screwed. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. It becomes the argument between deserving or best team. And so, like, do they deserve it? Well, TCU deserved it and got their asses kicked. Were they one of the four best teams? Well, pretty clearly not.
Yeah.
And that might have happened to FSU. We'll never know. But anyways, yeah, it's just with all the changes and the implosion of the Pac-12, I kind of thought that might bring Lanning to the SEC, but
just couldn't do it. Well, there is another school in the state of Alabama, even though I don't really pay much attention to it. But I know these two really do pay attention. So, new Auburn coaches. So it seems like Hugh Freeze went this year, and then he completely cleaned house. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Kenyatta.
I was pretty shocked by letting Cadillac go.
Yes.
And the fact that it was a resignation and not a mutual parting of ways, like just the language and how that was all released, I'm still unsure of. I wish him well, and I hope that everything works out as well as it can for him, because as an interim coach, obviously, not this past year, but the year before that, he was the glue that held it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And then Santana texted me about Zach Etheridge, and I was like, damn, man, like, two legacies, like, Auburn players. So obviously I've got some concern and whatever happened there, or obviously it could be much ado about nothing. I don't know. I like the hire of Derek Nix. He seems to have been pretty good. Seems like Ole Miss really wanted to hold on to him, and now he's our new OC and running backs coach, and has some history with Hugh Freeze. But I think Santana's got to take this one away as far as the future and how it does or doesn't look. I am cautiously optimistic, but incredibly cautiously. I don't like the exodus of coaches.
Yeah.
I was nervous initially, specifically when it was Caddy and Zach. Losing Montgomery didn't really shock me. The offense didn't look great. Like, it doesn't surprise me that you would move on from somebody after the way the offense happened this year. There seemed to be a lot. Like, Hugh hired Philip Montgomery specifically to call plays so Hugh could focus on recruiting, and then ended up taking play calling away because he didn't like how it was going. That was like game 4 or some shit. So like I wasn't overly surprised when they fired Philip Montgomery. Now, or I mean, I think fire. I don't know exactly the terms of how he left, but losing Caddy and Zach, I was again shocked until I listened to people who are way more in the know than me. Justin Hokanson for one, of On3 Sports, Auburn Live. When I heard he, like, it just seemed like it was something that Hugh wanted to do. And correct me if I'm wrong, Normie, but I think Saban cleaned house pretty decently after 2007 too.
No, yeah.
So it's not an unheard of thing for a coach to come in and retain coaches and then the next year go and get like specifically who they want. I was really concerned with Caddy because of what he had done for the running back room. Cobb was one of his recruits. Bigsby, like these guys that have been there since Caddy's been there, had like major cornerstones of the running attack have been there since Caddy has been there. But realistically, that's all he had brought in, and not to take away from anything that Caddy did, obviously taking over. And again, what you said, Kenyatta, the glue that held the team together during the Harsin time. But like just his overall impact as far as recruiting goes, I think that he really was only credited to a couple of running backs versus somebody like Zach Etheridge, who has been like one of our key contributors in recruiting. That concerned me. So I don't know, but Charles Kelly comes in. He'll be coaching defensive backs now. Derek Nix comes in, coaching running backs now, and the OC. Both highly touted recruiters. That's really all. When it comes to stuff like this, like if you're not going to, like, Derek Nix isn't going to be the play caller. Hugh is officially taking over, by all accounts, taking over full-time play calling. So this guy isn't somebody that you want to, like, I'm not overly concerned about his on-field impact. Like, I want him to be a major recruiter, and Derek Nix has been that. He has been contributed to many major players that have come through Ole Miss. I was looking at his list of just who he is. First off, 16 years at Ole Miss. Like, did either of you recognize? Like, yeah, I didn't know when he started getting. No wonder Ole Miss wanted to keep him. He had been there forever and contributed to a lot of great players. Some of the names that he had coached recently, or some of these not even recently, but Dexter McCluster, Brandon Bolden, Jordan Wilkins, and Snoop Connor, like all of those very productive backs in the SEC at Ole Miss in that time. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I just picked like 4 names off of a list of a bunch of people that we all know, that they were all productive, all contributed. And so he comes in to be able to coach I think Auburn has a really good running back room. Hunter's returning, Austin's returning, Beatty's returning. Jeremiah Cobb will be a sophomore next year. I think that he's got it. They are already talking about trying to get him more carries, more touches overall. So I think that recruiting wise, consistency wise, I think that Hugh is getting who he wants. Now, if we're maybe not next offseason, but the offseason after that, and we're cleaning house again, I will be a lot more concerned. And again, I would be more concerned now if I hadn't listened to people who are smarter than me and more in the know than I am. Because, yeah, I mean, that initial, like, oh my God, why are we not only cleaning house, but cleaning house of legacy players, specifically Cadillac. Like, I love Zach Etheridge, and Zach Etheridge holds a special place in my heart. But Cadillac is like one of my all-time favorite Auburn players, like maybe my number one favorite Auburn player. Like, I watched him the 2003-2004 season specifically, where it's just like, God, I love that player. And so for him to not only be on the staff and contribute in recruiting the way that he did, but specifically Tank, because like not only did he get Tank there, but kept Tank there when the coaching change after Gus happened. You know, I like not only his coaching, holding the team together, having like being able to see him run up and down the sideline and energize a fan base and a team that for Harson's tenure had not had been able to experience that. So, you know, he goes from being one of my favorite players to being one of my favorite coaches and contributing in such a way that can't really be measured by any win or loss or any stat. And so for him to be gone the next year after that, it sucks and concerned me at first. But again, smarter people say this is basically what's happening or what does happen. I've seen a bunch of people point out the 2007 year for Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Was Applewhite his first offense coordinator, or maybe it was the next year? I know that Applewhite was there for only like a short period of time.
Yeah, I think Applewhite was the first one.
Right, and then I think he was jettisoned the next year. You get in, you see what you can put together, and then maybe it doesn't work out. I think Hugh was quoted as saying something about very specifically the culture, like relating to the culture of what's going on there. And you don't want to think that Caddy and Zach would be, you know, bumping against what Hugh wants, but at the same time, they probably have a lot more pull in Lee County overall than Hugh Freeze does currently, you know. So maybe, you know, and that's all speculation. I don't know, but maybe that has something to do with it. Zach, I think, is already back on the Houston staff, which is where he came from for us, and we'll see where Caddy goes. I also wish him the best. Was kind of hoping that he was going to get an opportunity at the offense coordinator position because of the Montgomery let go, but he'll land on his feet. They'll both land on their feet. They're great coaches, great recruiters, great humans. So they'll be fine. I don't otherwise have a whole lot of opinion on the hires at Auburn other than sounds like they're good recruiters. That sounds great. Let's see where it goes forward, or let's see where it goes from here, which we will see, I guess.
Alrighty. Well, I hope they do a terrible job.
Sure.
No, I hope they win every game except one. Honestly, I'm not one of those Alabama fans that just hates Auburn. I think honestly, I probably hate Tennessee more. Like I can't pull for Tennessee. I will not do it. I can pull for Auburn and be totally fine. Now, when they, past couple of years when it's been the, one step forward, three steps back thing, I do chuckle sometimes.
Yeah,
Especially I watched a lot of Auburn football this year, and that was like, they get a big play or something good, and then it was like them get like two false starts in a row, like, or the defense, they would be like lighting it up.
Return that set you guys up for the win.
Yeah, stuff like that. That I've watched a lot of Auburn, and I know that y'all had some. I know last year was probably rougher than most, but
Normie, I don't know if I've told you, but I may have mentioned it last week that my daughter oftentimes likes to tell me that she is not an Auburn fan, that it is Roll Tide and 49ers. And I tell her each time, even though she says it with like that wicked grin on her face, like, haha, go fuck yourself, Dad. I am pulling for that. Like, yes, baby, that is the way to go, because I would not want your little heart to have to deal with what it is to be an Auburn fan. Like, yeah, it hadn't been great being a 49ers fan since I've been there, but like it's been consistent.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get on a Saturday. I don't care when we're the best team. 2004 was the most consistent team I've ever seen Auburn put together. Like, that was the last time I remember knowing things were going to go our way. 2010, we had arguably the greatest football player to ever touch a college football field, and I still had no freaking clue what the hell was going to happen on Saturday. And that's Auburn. 2013, like, you don't know, you have no idea, and that has been since I've been in diapers. Like that's just how I associate. So when Keaton goes, I only like Roll Tide, and I'm like, good, because you'll live a longer, happier life doing it that way.
there's going to be some level of consistency there.
You'll at
whereas
least know what to expect. Like, that's all I need. Just, are we going to be garbage? That would be great if I just knew we were going to be garbage. Oh, we're going to beat Alabama. Like, why the? We don't have time. We don't have the time to get into all of that.
Yeah.
So what
You're
happens?
Right, you're right.
What happens the day she comes in and says, "Daddy, I'm a Roll Tide, and I love the Cowboys"?
She moves out. She moves out. She can love anybody in college, and she can love 31 other teams. But the Cowboys are a non-starter. It's not funny. We don't joke about that in this house. She says, our new favorite game on Sundays is, she just points to each individual icon, says, "Who's that?" And we go through who that is. And she can point to San Francisco and go, "That's the Niners. We like the Niners." She's recently gotten into the Buccaneers because this household likes Pirates. And she's like, "Pirates?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're all, yeah, we can like the Buccaneers as long as they don't play San Francisco." And then she points to Dallas and she goes, "Cowboys." I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "We don't like the Cowboys. We don't like Dallas." I'm like, "No, exactly." Like waking up on a Monday morning after a San Francisco win is only comparable to waking up on a Monday morning after a Dallas loss. Like, that is, and we all feel that way. We as a trio, we as a team, as a family, everybody that I know feels that way about Dallas. Because why wouldn't you? Go fuck yourself, Dallas. If any Cowboys fans out there.
We accept all people from all teams.
Yeah, except for you're welcome. You're welcome to be here, but you're going to hear a lot of shit.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're not going to change what we think, but you're welcome to come and listen. And speaking of NFL, or you had something, Kenyatta?
Oh yeah, I will say, as far as calling the games last week, I don't know if you guys want to move on to a recap from last week or what you guys want to do next. But I'm the only one who called Green Bay over Dallas.
And that was the only one you won.
No, I went 3-3.
Oh, okay. That's because
you went 5-1.
Yeah.
I went 3-3. Santana went 2-4, and that was the only one that I differed with Santana on.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I also would have been 2-4, but I don't know, something about Dallas and Philly both just. There's something about the NFC East that I can't trust. Obviously, Philly went to the Super Bowl last year, so, that kind of sounds like talking out of my ass, but obviously they were stumbling so hard down the stretch.
It's not somebody blacked that eye for them, and they never recovered.
I mean, it really is like the
1-5
Niners,
after that.
They lost 6 of their last 7 games, I believe. I believe that's the stat. Did
y'all see Goddard?
The playoff included.
Did y'all see Goddard getting on Jalen on the sideline?
No, I didn't see that. No,
I have not heard what the interaction was about, but Goddard is yelling, and Jalen has just the Jalen face, like very collected and sad. He always looks like a sad boy, and which makes me sad. Like, just smile a little, bud. But yeah, Goddard got all, and there had been reports about Jalen's demeanor before, so it's kind of like, I don't know if Goddard was being like, "Hey, this is your fault, you piece of shit." I don't know what they said, what was going on, but it was just weird to see that level of player for that team yelling at that level of player for that team. I don't know. We broke them. That's exactly what we showed up dressed in black for a funeral, and they were not the same team afterwards. And
it's inarguable. I mean, you guys beat the hell out of them, and then they did not recover, which I kind of thought was shocking given the level of talent that they have all over the field. I don't think that they got bit by the injury bug too terribly difficult.
Not anymore than anybody else, but also I've lost my phone, Kenyatta. If you want to look at their schedule, I mean, weren't they were winning games by one possession like through most of the year? Like when they were 10-1 before they played San Francisco, I'm pretty sure that the majority of their games were one possession games. It's not like they were just dominating even to be.
No, a lot of people were saying already that they. I think Normie's got us here. But yeah, a lot of people are already saying they might be paper tigers.
Looks like they got Tampa by 2 scores. I wouldn't even call 23-14 2 scores for you guys. Fucked up Miami, but I mean that's another thing with the Miami and Dallas teams too. Like those guys weren't beating good teams, you know.
No.
Like, and not to take away from what Dallas or Miami did this year, but they just weren't beating good teams. So for them to not have gotten past good teams doesn't really shock me.
I mean, they beat Kansas City and Buffalo, though.
Yeah, but they beat Kansas City and Buffalo before either of those teams were really figuring it out, you know, like, I could be wrong, but I don't remember that Kansas City team being what we watched them do to Miami.
Oh,
and
no.
I know that Buffalo team
that Buffalo was not.
No.
Yeah.
Buffalo is the scariest team in the playoffs right now for me.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited about our picks here later on in this cast together, boys. Because once again, Normie's 5-1. You're 2-4. I'm sitting dead on 3-3. So it's comeback time now.
I'm not picking the 49ers game.
That's a good call. I picked the Rams. It was the only close super wild card game that there was this weekend. It was the only close one.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about that one since we're here?
Oh, not really. Not really. I'd like to go cry about it some more. I mean, geez.
I was hoping Cody was going to be on or listening to us tonight. I meant to text him.
He was listening for a little bit. He commented.
Oh, was he still here?
Doesn't look like it. But yeah, that one sucked. And we can once again progress as whatever way you guys want to.
Well, let's just go from the top. The first game, Cleveland-Houston. That was a damn good game, and I did not expect that. I was kind of wary about that one, especially when y'all were talking about Cleveland's defense. But it seemed the story of the game was actually Houston's defense. 2 pick sixes, one by Christian Harris.
That wasn't even a damn good game. That was a beating, man. Like,
well, it started off. It started off
to the woodshed.
Well, it started off
or took him out behind it.
Yeah, it was going to be a good game, but yeah, Houston just ran away with it. I mean, CJ Stroud.
He's that dude, man. CJ Stroud is real.
Yes.
Well, in that offense, I think we talked about them last week. Just that offense is so young. There's so many positive aspects in that system. I think D'Amico, somebody I think Normie that you probably would have loved to have had in Tuscaloosa.
I would have loved it, but I'm so glad he stayed too.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's got this is his place. They drafted him. This is his house. He brought in guys that are, I mean, and the cupboard wasn't bare when he first got there. Like Nico Collins was there, Damian Pierce was there. Like they have, and the defense wasn't devoid of talent either. I think we're going to be seeing Houston for a while, and I hope that's the case because I love D'Amico Ryans and I love CJ Stroud. I love what they've built over there. I've called it multiple times. Drafting Stroud and trading up for Will Anderson, the next pick is like shit that I would have done in Madden. Like, oh, I need my quarterback and my pass rusher right now. Like that's so bizarre that they and risk it for the biscuit. I used to get told that all the time back in football playing days. Like you got to risk it for the biscuit, and that's exactly what D'Amico did. D'Amico and that organization did. They said, hey, these 2 guys could be staples of our franchise for the next 15 years. And they went and got the guys that they needed to, and it worked out. Year one, it worked out.
Tank Dell, who's not playing in these playoffs, he's out for the rest of the season due to injury. And Tank Dell is possibly their best receiver on the team. and that's that's incredible. Like Nico Collins, like he probably is a number one. I mean, he is their number one.
His last 6 weeks have been insane.
And
but yeah, Tank Dell's the guy that CJ Stroud stood on the table and said, "Bring me this guy here. Like you're going to take me, take this guy too." And
so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just agreeing with you. Tank Dell's amazing. That the culture there seems to be growing in a similar fashion to some of these other high profile teams, and it just very similar to the way that your Rams are set up right now. Other than the young superstar quarterback, just like every position has a really young guy that I think that I would call this playoffs maybe the just like playoffs of overachievement. Because if you talk about, I said last week that I thought the Lions have overachieved this year, winning 11 games. The Rams damn sure overachieved. I think everybody had them sitting at the later end of the 27, 20, 25, 26, 27 power rankings type situation.
Yeah, I couldn't find a power ranking where they were above 25 coming into the year.
Which I think may have been a little too low to start with, but if that's everybody's expectation, and then you should have beat an 11-5 division winner, that I think that's I would consider that well overachieved. The Browns never should have been in the playoffs to begin with. They're the Browns. And then Houston's super young. You have an MVP. Like at one point in time, CJ Stroud was not only being talked about for Rookie of the Year, but MVP. And he played that way. I mean, 16-21 for 274 and 3 tutters and a blowout win over a team that on paper probably should have beat you by 2 scores, right? And I think that if you're a Houston fan, all 27 of you or whatever there are, you have a reason to be excited.
Oh yeah, no, like if you're a Houston fan, there is nothing but promise in the future. I'll knock on proverbial wood right now, but given the youth of that team, because Nico, I think he's only in his I
think this is his second year.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, and then Noah Brown, he's very young. He's the guy who's now stepped up to be the number 2 receiver. It's a good, solid offensive line. Are there places where you can, make moves in the offseason? Of course, there's not a single of 32 teams that's not going to have some of those, but between D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, and Will Anderson being the foundation, and I would, just the very next step down, put Tank Dell and Nico Collins on that level. They're going to be a handful. Like everybody thought that this was going to be the Jags division.
I was about to say, especially in that division, I think that similarly to the way that the NFC South this year was, and anybody could win it at any given time. It's going to be similar going forward for the AFC South, except for like the AFC South will do it with good teams. Like the NFC South did it with boring garbage teams, and the AFC South will probably. I mean, because Anthony Richardson comes back, I don't know what we're going to see from him overall. I think probably injuries will probably hinder him.
Santana, can I go ahead and predict what you might be picking in our future picks here in a moment for the NFC South?
You can.
Just kidding. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Oh, I think that division, Stroud led, Anthony Richardson led, Trevor Lawrence led. Like I think that you're going to be seeing a fun division going forward, and I think that even with all of those teams kind of seemingly heading up, obviously the Texans seem to be in a position to take a stranglehold early. I mean, it's clearly good coaching. It's clearly good quarterback play. Like, the easy answers to all of sports ball,
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, that division, like, it's going to be fun because of, you got, jury's out on Anthony Richardson, like, wildly out. Let's see if he can stay healthy. But they said that about Tua, and he finally stayed healthy, and he
Well,
had
and
an
even
almost
if it
MVP like season.
even if it's not Richardson, that team is extremely competitive with not a standout receiver, and not a stand like Gardner Minshew playing this year played pretty well, and they were competitive. They were not winning games the way that you would want to, but they they're still the Colt. Like the defense is still pretty good. DeForest Buckner's there. Like there's still stuff going on there that if Anthony Richardson does come in and does end up being the guy that they want him to be, drafting him in the top 5, then great. But even if he's not the answer, like you've had Gardner Minshew, who I think is one of the more underrated, like backup level guys in the league. He can win you games, and so it may not be Richardson long term, but there's the Colts overall have a bright, they screwed up the Jonathan Taylor thing, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't disagree on anything that you just said. Other than Zach Moss did also go out for a few games himself, so I mean I guess you had to have a backup for Zach Moss. Why not go ahead and pay him, $7 million a year? But
it's just such a weird thing, and we don't have to get into that, but it's just such a weird thing. We've talked about it a bunch of times, Kenyatta. Like every other example of running back says, "Give me more money," team says no. Team ends up looking right, like looking like they were correct. Whether it's Le'Veon Bell or Melvin Gordon or any of these recent
Marco Murray.
Yeah, give me more money. Team says nah, we're not gonna, and then it ends up looking like whether it's James Conner after Le'Veon Bell or Eckler after Melvin Gordon or whatever the situation may have been.
Tony Pollard.
Yeah, Tony Pollard. Like that was a great one. Of course, his season this year was not what you would have wanted it to be, but either way, like most teams go, we're not going to pay you, and it seems to work out. And the Colts went, we're not going to pay you, and then it was working out. And then they went, you know what, we are going to pay you.
We will pay you.
You know what? You have a good point. As you've been standing over there, and we've been equally, if not more, productive than what we were. We're going to pay you.
Weird feeling this guy might
look,
he might get hurt.
And not to take away from JT, like obviously that's a guy that you want on your roster, but and had Zach Moss not been productive early on in the season, then you go, yeah, pay the man, get him back in here. But you paid him like after Zach Moss had a week of like 3 straight weeks of 3 touchdown games. Like you went ahead and paid him after Zach Moss was like, see, no, it doesn't have to be him. I don't know. That again, neither here nor there. Conversation for a different show.
Yeah, it's a whole different show on that one. But I how I feel about it. I agree with you. I guess we want to keep recapping. KC, where were those receivers at the regular season?
Well, they still dropped a bunch of balls.
The one who was the most phenomenal on the drops in that game. And, I don't want to upset the Swifties, but it's Travis Kelce, the most sure hands on the team.
Yeah.
He's been that way all year as a Kelce fantasy owner. He has not produced the way that we expected him to. But also in that game, I mean, what was the temperature? Like the fact that they were even trying to throw the ball either team.
It was like -4.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I believe they sent some crazy amount of fans to the hospital, and then even players to the hospital.
The Buffalo game did too. I think both games had frostbite victims.
I mean, that. Look, I love weather football. It's fun to watch, this, that, or the other. But if it's gonna get down, if it's gonna be there, where people literally might get hospitalized. Play it in a dome.
Well, and I don't think that it's necessarily that shouldn't be considered a weather game. Weather is like when it's sloppy and muddy and rainy, and weather is when one of my favorite highlights is watching Shady McCoy when he's playing for Buffalo, and he was either playing for Buffalo or playing for Philly in Buffalo, but he was running in like the snow was up to his knees, and he ran for 200 yards that game. Like that's fun weather games. When it's just cold, like that field was not like, I know the Buffalo game was covered in snow for a little while, or the Buffalo field was covered in snow for a little while, but the Kansas City game, I told Will or Chewbacca or whatever we want to call him, like that.
There it is.
that looked so god dang miserable. Like watching them hit the ground, like and both of you guys played when we were kids, but nothing feels worse than when it's cold and you're getting fucked about. Like there's catching a ball, getting hitting the ground. Nothing feels good. Like there's no positive, like, you know, and that's watching the sidelines and watching players on the field without long sleeves and bouncing up after getting hit and hitting the ground. Like that's why those people get paid the money to do that, because I couldn't. Like, I know that I couldn't. That sucks. Like that. There's no way. So, you know, shut up, Kenyatta. Kelsey couldn't catch because it was cold, is what I'm getting at.
Look, and once again,
and he's gonna shake it. He's gonna shake it off. He's gonna shake it off. You know,
Rasheed Rice, the big one. He had a huge game. But like some of the other receivers who'd had a little bit of drop issues here and there, but not here and there, like all season long. Like your main contributor, like your sure hand guy, like you're saying there, Santana, like it's not like Kelsey has been primo Kelsey that we know. But 3 pretty bad drops, and I think it was 4 total. And he is still probably your number 1 or number 2, you know, kind of gets arguable. I'll give it to you with Kittle. But I think it's got to be between those 2 still right now, although Laporta's making a big push.
Yep.
But when it comes nut cutting time, we all 3 picked KC for that game, and they dominated that. That score could have been, if that temperature had been better, if that, like, if Andy Reid had wanted to put his foot on the gas pedal, in my opinion, KC could have won that by 3 or 4, maybe not 3 or 4 touchdowns, 3 or 4 scores.
Well, Kenyatta, you mentioned the receivers catching the way that they did, but what really stood out to me, and I mostly got my eyes on the second half of the game, what really stood out for me was their just ability to lean on the Miami defensive front and
that's 100% a fact.
Run the football. Because they would get in positions where it'd be 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, you know, those type of 3rd and medium situations, and be able to run to get it. Like they didn't have to rely on throwing it to the guys that have been unreliable all year. It was check down, hand it off to Pacheco or whoever was in the backfield at the time. Like they were able to, my notes that I made for this game is specifically that game. The score was closer, as you just said, score was closer than what it actually was. And the reasoning for that was that Kansas City was able to lean on Miami. Like just, they couldn't stop them. They could not get them off the field on 3rd down.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire had himself a bit of a resurgence, which is dangerous for them moving forward. And this will be just my last takeaway from that game, is that KC is like, they're dangerous. Like they've been dangerous since Patrick Mahomes took over starting duties, and they just showed it again. Obviously, yes, in their home element, in like a crazy weather game, 4th coldest game in NFL history.
Against a team from Florida.
Who I believe that Tua's only got like that the starting quarterback Tua Tagovailoa has only got like 2 wins in temperatures above 65 degrees, which I think is funny and also a little sad. You know,
65 is so warm.
it's not all hot, buddy.
That 65 is so toasty. Like, what, you can only play in domes or sunshine? Like, what? I don't. I don't necessarily think that that's Tua's issue, but it is.
I don't
Yeah.
know how much that actually translates
Yeah.
to like his actual ability. And I like Tua a lot, but I
What
do
I'll
think
say-
that KC has proven that there's a reason why they're just consistently here all the time.
What it reminds me of, and obviously, like it's an obvious comparison, but the Brady Patriots for so long, like there would be plenty of seasons where you would just go, maybe the Patriots aren't it this year, and Brady and then would just do whatever it took to win 10, 11 games and generally win the division. And then you're like, oh yeah, but I mean, they're not like Super Bowl Patriots. And then the next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl and beating, Philadelphia or whatever they're doing at the time. Like, it just kind of reminds me of that. Like, we may not be what y'all want us to be, but we're quietly still one of the better teams in the league. Now we're in the playoffs, and now all we have to do is win 3 to 4 games versus, what you had been seeing us in the regular season do. And that's exactly what it reminded me of, especially with just that, like Mahomes catch the snap and hand it off and then be able to get 4 or 5 yards in a chunk every play in that second half, like especially on third downs again.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it in those terms, but that's a really good point.
They're the only kind I make, bud.
Well, this is only our second show of the year, so I'll hold you to that.
Don't mark them down. Just
I'm marking them down. I got it.
He's got a whiteboard over there. All right, 1 for Santana. Okay.
The next one we got is Buffalo. All of us are. I can't even remember who they played. They beat them so bad.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, we each and every one of us picked Buffalo. We were right on that.
Yeah, I feel like that was an easy.
Yeah,
that would have been an easy pick. Like that's, and it showed on the field. That one long run that Josh Allen had. I mean,
look, and that's when I texted you, Kenyatta, and I said Josh Allen's that dude was after that run. And the Bills, like I said earlier, are the team that I'm, as a 49ers fan, just say we are fortunate enough to make it there. I would be more scared of Buffalo than I would be at this point of any other team on the AFC side. And that's including the Baltimore Ravens, who recently gave us a thumping. Josh is hot. The Bills are hot. The defense is playing well. They're able to run the football.
mm-hmm.
All right. So what I have just in my notes for this game is that I wasn't shocked by what happened. I figured that Buffalo would probably give Pittsburgh a drubbing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and give Pittsburgh some credit that they did show some grit. I thought, like throughout even the final score 31-17. And this was the other frozen game, so like every person that hit the ground, I said a silent prayer for. But that Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback, and that's not taken away from Pickett in the season. Like Pickett still could be that guy. I'm not trying to take away from him, but Mason Rudolph is clearly not that guy. He has done a really good job of proving it by not being more than a third string quarterback for the majority of his career. We know that Rudolph's not that guy. And there are multiple 3rd and 6s, those 3rd and mediums that I was talking about in the other game, where Rudolph would throw it and it would go out of bounds, or it would not necessarily skip. It just, they were running the ball well. Najee was running the ball well. The offensive line looked good. I thought that Pittsburgh showed a lot of oomph, a lot of gumption. It was really apparent that, Mason Rudolph is not your dude to beat a team as hot as Buffalo is right now.
Well, and normally feel free to weigh in on this, but I 100% agree with you there, buddy. I think that that's another one of those games, much like KC and Miami, to where I think that if, ball bounces exactly how it's supposed to bounce, like you take luck and all the other factors out, and I think it's kind of what you're saying in some regards, is Buffalo just, they look like the better team the whole game. And they've looked like the better team in most of their recent games. They are the most terrifying team in the AFC right now. they are the ones. Like they're the AFC version of the Giants right now, in my opinion. From when the Giants went and fucked up Tom Brady and the Patriots twice.
I was gonna say both times they were, I think, 9-win teams both times and got hot right at the time that it mattered to get hot. Got hot, won the game. It's kind of one of the reasons that I'm concerned about Green Bay next week. Just that heat factor. But no, Buffalo. Not only is Buffalo hot, but specifically Josh is hot.
He's that dude. I can't stand him. And hopefully one day we'll get big enough to where I can have him on the show and I'll tell him to his face.
Let's just start tweeting him, just tagging him in everything that we do. Even if the show has nothing to do with Josh Allen, we just tag Josh Allen in the show so he becomes aware of us and the hatred that Kenyatta has for him. But yeah, no, I mean, he is that guy. Like watching what he did this weekend. And he had a cool spot. Like I think Romo and them had the game, and I remember if it wasn't Romo, whoever it was, the color guy talking about how like, okay, now this is the Josh Allen that we're kind of used to seeing because he is that guy. He's a fucking roller coaster. But a lot of roller coasters are fun, so that's kind of where he is. That he's going to give you these 3 straight drives of being maybe the best player in the game, and then give you 2 drives of like, well, that was interesting. Maybe don't punt it on 2nd down or whatever the hell you did. But just Pittsburgh ran into a buzzsaw, and who did the Bills end up with next week? Who are we looking at?
Kansas City, I think.
Oh yeah. It's Mahomes and Josh.
That's that. When we do our picks, that's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah,
because it's the first time in Patrick Mahomes' starting career to where he will play a road playoff game, which is pretty fucking incredible because this is his 6th year in the NFL, and all roads have led through Kansas City until now.
Well, and I've got to lean on what I would call for that one. And it again, I think it, but I mean, after I don't know, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
All right, you guys, Normie, you want to weigh in on?
That was pretty much, y'all pretty much said everything I had on the game. Josh Allen, he's looking like Josh Allen, but well, yeah, we'll get there about next week or this week. But
the next one was Philly. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, Santana mentioned Green Bay, so Green Bay and Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, y'all.
I know
y'all
you.
How I feel. Yeah, I was.
Loved it.
Yeah, and we were on our way home from Gatlinburg, and Chewbacca had it on his phone to my right, and he was just giving me updates, and it was happening. Like every time he opened his mouth, it was just growing. Like the lead, like the final score, 48-32, was not the beatdown.
No.
And that's a beatdown. 48-32 is a beatdown, and that was not the beatdown. And my God, did I love it. Because that's who I thought Dallas was this year. I didn't expect that to happen, But like Dallas had, again, going back to them and Miami, they were very similar teams to me, that they had a lot of opportunity in front of them, that they played extremely high-level football. CeeDee Lamb became like the guy that I thought that he would have been coming out of the draft. Like CeeDee Lamb's year this year was insane. Dak's year this year was insane. They played so well. They had all the talent in the world. Deron Bland breaking interception records. Like just all of the things that Dallas people love to glob onto. But they can't beat good teams. Dak can't win in the playoffs. Like all of these things that people say about the Cowboys is real. They choke. Like you are going to win 10 to 12 games. Great. You're going to be one of the best teams in the league. Great. You're probably going to win the division. Great. But what do you do when you get to the playoffs? And as I've got a 49ers rant to go on here in a little bit, once we get to next week or this upcoming week conversation, I'm glad Dallas is eliminated because I didn't want to see them again. That's how good I thought the Dallas football team was. But does it surprise me that they lost to a good team in the playoffs? No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Does it shocked me that they got drubbed. It shocked me that they got drubbed by Green Bay. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But does it shock if we had seen them? Like, would it have shocked me if San Francisco beat the brakes off of Dallas again? No, it wouldn't, because that's who they are. Like, that is the team. Like, that's what I have grown up watching. That's why I hate Dallas so much, because everybody, this team. Like, no, dude, it's never that team. Fuck Dallas. You're never going to be like, fuck Dallas. Every time Will gave me a score update, I would just like, yes, fuck Dallas. Jordan Love, 16-21 for 272 and 3 tutters. Like, Kenyatta, we talked early in the season where after his first few games, I was like, I think they may have a dude. And then he kind of went on his little spill, right? And I was like, well, maybe not, but I'm not gonna start pulling out blocks from under him. And then he just kept getting better. Very similar to the way CJ Stroud just kind of built on week to week. You know, like it was good game, hiccup, good game, better game. You know, that type of just like building into what the season became. He goes 16-21 for 272 and 3. And then Aaron Jones, who is maybe the only Packers player that I really enjoyed this day and age, 118 and also 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he decides to do that now. Someone had him all year on his fantasy team, and
I wonder who that was.
He did nothing, and the only reason I held out was because they never put him on IR. It was always every Sunday. Oh, Aaron Jones isn't playing. And now he decides to go for 118 and 3 touchdowns. Thanks, bud.
You gotta love it. I mean, everybody, if they put us in pads against Dallas, I know that our heart, like just what is in our veins, the hatred in our veins, would allow us to also run for 3 touchdowns against Dallas. Here's
Jerry World.
Here's a football X's and O's thing, Normie. Have you seen like some of the wide shot, like the goal line shots of what Dallas was doing defensively? They run. It's some combination of like 4-2 situation where there's like basically no linebackers.
Yeah,
and
they had no middle linebacker, but they would have their 2 linebackers out wide.
Right, and so you're looking
so
like
the middle was right wide open until the safety.
If I'm the quarterback and you call in whatever play, it doesn't matter what the play is, and I'm standing back there and I'm looking at what you have lined up for me, I am checking to a fucking dive almost every play. Like you can just here it is, like you know. I don't know. So, and
I did notice that one a lot, but because I'm like, man, the middle is wide open. Why are they not going to just quarterback run right the middle?
I mean, in this vaunted defense of what Dallas has been this year with Lawrence and Parsons, you know, they have stud players at positions, but they have not addressed the middle of the defense, and I don't know how long or you know, and Van Der Esch is he. You know, I don't know where he's at as far as health goes. Like, I don't know. Just looking from a football X's and O's perspective, and you're looking from the asses of the offensive line. If you're not checking into running the ball almost every play, like, I don't know. And that's just Dallas. And I texted Kenyatta earlier and said that I was glad that they're keeping McCarthy, and not to hate on McCarthy. It's just that I wasn't overly excited about the possibility that Bill Belichick ends up in Dallas. Would he have done anything more than anybody else? I don't know, but I know that he is a better head coach than Mike McCarthy, or has been in the past, and I didn't need that. Nobody needs that. America doesn't need that. America's going through enough. We don't need Belichick at the Cowboys.
Mm-mm.
All right, we got 2 more games to recap. If you guys want to recap them, I'm actually okay with just moving on to future picks.
No, I mean, there's 2 games. There's 2 games that we should at least do the 2 games that we have to do.
Yeah.
All right, I guess let's start with Philly and Tampa Bay.
I would say that was a fun game to watch, especially watching Baker Mayfield. Dude had a hell of a game.
Are we as a
And
trio here? Like we all like Baker Mayfield, right?
I do now. I didn't know. I hated him when he was in college, but ever since he got out, and then those commercials and stuff,
Commercials were great, man.
I mean, they just seemed to really, and he just seemed to kind of like quickly humble himself.
That's pretty
Well,
much my exact same sentiment there, Normie.
And
Well, and I don't-
now
yeah.
I just love it when he succeeds now. Like I'm like, yeah, I used to hate you, but you seem like a cool dude now. You seem like you finally grew up.
Well, and
Hey,
whether he was humbled himself or was just humbled, because I liked the way that Cleveland had built that team with him, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, and just the team. The offensive line was good. The defense was. I just liked the way that team was built. And then for them to just sacrifice their future to go get a bad massage getter and kicks like that may be like whether Baker humbled himself or he just was humbled over the past 2 years, really, right? 2 years, like 4
yeah,
teams in 2 years, something like that. Like, so whether he humbled himself or he just was humbled by what the business of the game will do. I was so happy when he got to Los Angeles last year and had a few games after getting there that he was productive.
Yeah, he was hella good for us. I loved him at Los Angeles.
I thought for sure that you would keep him, and but he wanted
Couldn't
to
afford
start. Well, couldn't afford him, and he wanted to start. So he goes to Tampa, and I think like statistically, he basically matched Tom's last year there.
mhm.
Yeah, he's
and-
been phenomenal.
Well, and I heard I can't remember who it was, maybe Orlovsky or somebody talking about just the swagger that Baker carries and what that brings to an offense, what that brings to a team when your quarterback goes out there and will fling himself at a defensive lineman in a block. You know, like just the swagger that is Baker, the crotch grab and the finger,
Mhm.
just like that type of shit. Like that's fun. Phillip Rivers used to do shit like that. Like. I don't know. People love Phillip Rivers and hated on Baker for so long, but I'm glad that if he humbled himself or got humbled, I'm glad that he ended up here. I'm glad that he got to do what he has done this season, and I'm glad that he beat what had been one of the better teams in the league and beat them like they did. He was 22 of 36 for 337 and 3 tutters. Kenyatta and Chewbacca had said called the Bucks by 30, and I laughed. I was like, that seems like a little much. They may beat them by a few scores, but beating them by 30 seems a little much. And then they almost did. Like they almost beat them by 30. The Eagles are broken. I don't know what their next step is next year, but AJ Brown obviously not playing was a big deal, but he also hadn't been himself. You know who I loved in that game for the Eagles? Devontae Smith. Like Devontae did everything that Devontae could.
Yeah, 100%.
And it obviously just wasn't enough.
And it wasn't just me, or did they have a lot of drops as well?
Yeah.
Like I know, like Dallas, they weren't perfect balls, but they're balls that NFL receivers should catch.
Well,
generally.
And I don't know what Goddard's issue was with Jalen specifically.
Because he dropped a few himself.
Yeah, it's not like anybody. They just haven't played well. The only reason they made the playoffs or were a playoff team is because they won so many early on. But after the 49ers lost, they turn around immediately and get drubbed by Dallas. And nobody wants that. And it just, like that team just, I think we all know, everybody in sports media, all fans, everybody that watched the Eagles for the last few weeks of the season know that team was not the same.
They goddamn sure didn't look like it. I'll give you that. Like they were not the same after that. Have not been the same. And I like basically all of their players. Their fans kind of, I won't say it, I guess, since we broadcast to the whole world, but I love all their players. And the Sirianni, I like him. I know, I was kind of bummed for Jalen and how it all went down, but no, after that Niners game, they never looked like a dominant team in the NFL again for another game, not one time.
Well, and again, going back to the earlier
last 7.
going back to the earlier conversation, how much domination had happened earlier in the year.
Yeah, they
Like,
won a lot
Yeah.
of close games.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. Just kind of when you go back and look, like the pieces kind of fit together, and that like maybe they just were never what they were last year. I mean, specifically, I mean, and Kenyatta, you and I have talked about this, and we may have all three talked about this last week, but Nick Bosa called a lot of shit for saying after that game that they had put the blueprint out on how to beat Philly. And he, like, a bunch of people were making fun of him, talking shit about him for saying that. Bosa is not like this guy who says something and it's, stacked on other meanings. Like, he's not like this wise philosopher guy. He's just literally saying what he thinks happened. And I was watching that game against the Bucks. Bosa said pushing the A gap and forcing Jalen to roll out versus being able to step into the running lanes up front blows the offense up. And I watched multiple games after the 49ers game where that happened, and I specifically looked for it because Bosa got so much shit for it. Tampa did that. Tampa blitzed the A gaps, pushed the interior
almost every play.
Almost every play. And like, so yeah, maybe silly dummy Nick was correct that he, they put a blueprint out on how to beat that team. And obviously AJ Brown, again, not being in is a big deal, but he hadn't been the AJ Brown this year that he was last year either. So I don't know, maybe a lot of teams were kind of catching up. I hate that term. I hate that, like, NFL coaches catch up because they have so much time or whatever. I hate that narrative, but maybe it happened. Maybe so every game was close until San Francisco said, all right, we're coming in here to break you apart because of, obviously the history of last year and everything. I don't know, but it showed. It showed if nobody else did it, Tampa definitely did it.
I'd say that 6 out of your last 7 is at least a little bit telling. At least a little bit telling.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, and losing to Arizona, it's not like they just lost to San Francisco and Dallas and other teams of that caliber. They lost to Arizona.
Yeah.
And God bless Arizona, gave San Francisco the number 1 seed that week when they did that. But that's not a team that should have beaten a previously 1-loss team, So
okay, and I will just go ahead and move on to our picks for the next week.
Last one.
Before we go to the next recap, my wife did want to ask and wants y'all's opinion. Is Jason Kelce retiring? Jason Kelce is her favorite player. She listens to that podcast him and his brother do. Do you think he's retiring?
I would be kind of shocked if he didn't. I thought that it was official.
Yeah, I thought it was 100%.
Literally yesterday.
That's what I thought too. But then
apparently
before
it's
this,
still up in the air.
Yeah, she was like, I listened to the podcast and it's new heights. That's what it is.
Yeah.
She was like, I listened to the podcast and he said, no, I haven't made a decision yet, or something along those lines.
Yeah. And I texted Kenyatta as I was watching him sob coming off the field, which is something that gets me every time. When I see an athlete coming off the field or the court for the last time, it gets me. But he was like, there were plenty of minutes left on the clock. I mean, he came out for the last, I think maybe of just the last Philly drive, but he went out there and then came out like as Philly, finished the game, and then was sobbing, and he hugged his offensive line coach real tight. And I texted Kenyatta and I said, hey, that Kelce's out, like that, this is it. And then reports immediately coming from the locker room where he is retiring. So, and then I heard the clip. I haven't watched or listened to the entire episode, but I heard the clip where he tells Travis, like, I hate that got released because that's not where I'm at. I will make an official announcement when I do decide to, but obviously it's difficult. We've all walked away from something for the last time and know that how emotional that last situation can be. So he was thinking about it last year. Like he almost retired after the Super Bowl anyway. And then came back to try and win a second one. And And I don't know. He says that such an emotional decision at an emotional time can't be made that way. I think that probably. Like there was just a whole lot of emotion that happened there, and especially now this can go two ways. Either the team ending and folding the way that it did. He says, "We're not going to be any better than what we were. I'll go ahead and retire." Or the team folding in the way that it did. He goes, "That's not us. That's not how we should have finished the season. I'm going to come back and go again." But I will say this. I will say this, that I do think that he didn't play his best over those last few weeks either, and specifically in that Tampa game. Not only getting moved around on the offensive line or on the line of scrimmage, but he also has had some mental mistakes that are not Jason Kelce caliber type stuff. So he may be not only thinking the team may not be worth coming back to, but also maybe I'm not where I want to be to play anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that. Santana, a little bit of Saban, like I can't give everything to the game. And that was my whole thing, is like once I can't give my all to the game anymore, that's when I'll call it quits. And I don't know if he can give it all, because I think next year he'll be 37. Just I would be kind of shocked if he comes and gives it another shot. Not that I would hate it. I love Jason Kelce, but I'm kind of with that initial emotion that Santana was talking about, where he probably he knows that he knows, he just doesn't want to pull that trigger just yet, because that is a very deep decision, a very personal decision for him personally, and then him and his family.
Britt, his back issues, his health is a big thing. Like he's talked about it a bunch. He's beat up. He's had a back thing, and for him to, I don't know. He's also got tiny children. Like I think they're 4, 5, 6 range, right? Yeah. So
go Birds. Jason has the best cousin.
We don't say that first part here.
Well, and also, as much as I love Jason Kelce, he's not going to go down as one of the greatest at his position, and his brother is.
I mean, he's still pretty much a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No, yeah, 100%, 100%.
There have been some questions about that, like what specifically makes him a Hall of Famer. And I think that those positions are, thankless and so hard to, because there's not like a stat that says he was this.
Yeah.
Now he played 13 years and hardly missed any time. I think that that's something that you can credit to an offensive lineman when it comes to that. I think that the brotherly shove or tush push or whatever you want to call it would be not jack shit without Jason Kelce. So I mean, you can credit that to his legacy. I don't know. I think that probably a. All right. How do you block people?
Get her out.
Too many go birds. We can love on Jason if we want to, but too many go birds here.
I can put her in timeout. That's about it.
Let's talk about the Rams and Lions.
Alrighty. So that was by far the best game of the week. I thought the Rams were actually going to come in and pull it out, but even if it was my hardest pick to be right, like I was like, oh, especially how close the game was. I was like, oh. But I am glad Detroit got a win and got in. It's one of those, like, yeah, if they lost to anybody, Detroit would be the one that I'd be like, okay, I'm kind of fine with it. I know Cunyato is not.
Well, again, for me, both of those teams just so reached past where I thought that they would be this year. It doesn't surprise me with a coach like McVay and a quarterback like Stafford that the Rams ended up getting to where they got to. And it doesn't surprise me that the Lions, with the structure that they have right now, got to where they got to. I just thought that maybe next year for both teams. Kenyatta, something I wanted to ask you about that we hadn't been able to. I'm not sure that's a chant, but we'll get there. But Kenyatta, something I wanted to ask you about that we hadn't gotten a chance to talk to is the hit on Stafford, the roughing the passer, that apparently didn't get called, and he got fucked up, like knocked out, right?
Oh yeah. When that was scary. I cannot believe they let him back in that game.
Right, didn't
The
like
way
let it, and it didn't.
it wasn't the hit. It wasn't the hit. It was his head hitting the ground.
His head hit the ground, and then somebody stepped on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Which he came off the field holding the shoulder. But that it was roughing. It was very clearly roughing, and nobody called it, right? Like it wasn't a called penalty.
No.
Yeah. So
yeah, he and Cooper Kupp, I believe, went out within 1 to 3 plays of one another, and both of them probably shouldn't have been allowed back on the field. And that's just, my non-medical professional opinion. Obviously, they've got trusted medical professionals out there monitoring all these things, but like his eyes rolled back in his head. He clearly didn't know where he was for a second. And obviously, as a fan, I was like, please don't be out for the game. But as just a person that doesn't want other people to get hurt, it's like, might be Carson Wentz time. I don't think Carson Wentz could have won us that game. Like, doesn't matter. But yeah, I believe Cooper Kupp was the other one that kind of had a similar incident, and they were both in the blue tent, like incredibly close together. They both came back out. And I was like, okay, all right, Rams, this kind of seems like shady dealing. As far as the no call, I mean, tis what it is. Shit fucking happens. I mean, I watched Nickel Roby Coleman
smack his ass
in that Saints Rams NFC. I can't remember if that was divisional or championship.
I think it was the championship, wasn't it? Doesn't matter now.
But whatever it was, obvious. Like it was obvious. It was incredibly obvious. So as a Rams fan, like I'm not gonna sit here and bitch and moan about it. But that's another thing as far as like just thinking about the future for our team. Our team defensively is so incredibly young. Offensively, we have a lot of really good young pieces. But moving forward, old Matty Stafford's not getting any younger at all. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it out here into the ether, and I hope I don't get disappeared for it. But what the hell happened with Stetson Bennett?
Dude, I saw something about that earlier, and I specifically went through the comments just to see if anybody had any like weird insight. And it's everything that you and I had speculated on, specific, not going into specifics, but addiction issues and rehab issues and overall personal issues, which we had all, I mean, like, why else would it have been so, secretive and whatever. Also, who cares? That's not your answer. Like, what? That's what is, that's not going to be the guy.
You're right. But we've got Carson Wentz, so cool, and he's not old. In fact, without us being involved, he might have been the next answer, like at quarterback for a long time. Like, who knows? I don't know. but with the staff for that whole game, man, like it was a hell of a game. I also watched that game with my really best friend Lions fan, and yeah, it was me and Cody watching it. Did Santana duck out? Is he still there?
Potty break.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but it was a tough watch because I really felt like we were the better team, but
Yeah.
by the end of the day, like by the end of the evening, Detroit won. They deserve to win, and I'm really pulling hard for them coming up against the Bucks. Not that I got anything against the Bucks. It's just like, well, shit. Like if you're gonna beat us, go ahead and do the damn thing.
Well, out of all the games, I think that Baker Mayfield win was probably my favorite because I mean they just beat the crap out of them, and they looked like they were having fun doing it too.
Oh yeah, it didn't like one and only game, and I watched pretty much all 6 of them this weekend. The one and only game that looked like it could go either way was the Rams and the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the scores are not indicative to how badly some of the other teams were beaten, and sometimes the scores are. They're like multiple, just like beatings.
Yeah.
But Detroit and Los Angeles, that it really did come right down to it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was just on the wrong side of it that night. But good for Detroit. It's their very first win in the playoffs in 31 years, 32 years. So my old Chewbacca has literally never even been in diapers to even see one. Now, I don't remember any of them because I'm not that old, but that was also pre-Kenyatta memory of Detroit winning the playoffs. So good for them. Rams, I think, do have a semi-bright future, hopefully. It's quite a young team. Concerned about a few things going forward, but that's not for this conversation. I guess we can go ahead and leap now that we're 2 hours and 5 minutes into this. We can just go ahead and leap to the next round of the playoffs, the divisional round, and start making our picks.
All right. So first up, we got Houston at Baltimore.
Yep.
I will go Baltimore here. I think this is where Houston's train ends. And as long as they don't take a huge beating, I think even in a loss that their fans should be happy. And the whole organization should just be happy. But I think Baltimore will take it.
Okay, Santana, you want to go next? You want me to go next? I don't care.
I agree. I gushed over Houston earlier. Everybody knows how I feel about their future prospects. I think that Baltimore, regardless of what happened on Christmas, I think that in these playoffs currently, like where we're at currently, San Francisco, Baltimore, and Buffalo are the teams that you really like, and not to take away from somebody like Detroit or Green Bay. Like these teams, everybody left is a good football team, I just think that Baltimore, I mean, Lamar Jackson led Baltimore. It's I think I know the AFC Championship pretty easily. I think we're going to see Josh and Baltimore. Like I think that's what we're going to see. So yeah, Baltimore over Houston.
Okay. I appreciate those picks, boys. I am actually going to go against the grain here. I'm going to go to the Texans because Lamar Jackson is, I believe, 1-3 in the playoffs, and that week of a layoff, I think, scares me a little bit. Whereas the Houston Texans are picking up steam and starting to get a little bit more mode, a little bit more juice. So I'm gonna ride the miracle story. I'm gonna go the Texans on that one. The next one we got up is the Pack at the 49ers.
I'm gonna go San Francisco. I think after having the bye week, especially, I'm pretty sure they weren't planning on putting in Green Bay, but I mean it's the pros, and I think they're the team to beat anyway in this whole thing. So I'm gonna go San Fran.
I'll go next, and I'm doing this with heart and head. Heart, please 49ers. I don't hate the Packers like Santana hates the Cowboys, but it's probably just the next step under. I don't like the Packers. They're for a litany of reason. So I'm gonna go with the Niners with my heart and my head, like you were talking about there, Normie. Like they're the most complete team out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting healthy, plus they got the week to rest. So yeah, I gotta go 49ers here.
I'm not picking.
And Santana's abstaining.
Yeah, look, what I will say about the game is that I see very much like a bunch of these teams. Like that's what kind of the fun thing about these playoffs is that a bunch of these teams have an extremely bright future, and I think that Green Bay is definitely one of those teams. And San Francisco is also a team that is out there in the world, and those are the things that I will say about this game.
It's always good to hear from you, Santana. It's insightful. All right, we got the Bucks at the Lions.
All right. I'm going to pick Tampa Bay in this one, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lost. I don't know. Their offense just looked really good. Defense looked really good. But that's one of those things with Baker Mayfield is he'll have an excellent game one game, and then the next game he goes out there and instead of throwing 3 touchdowns, he throws 3 picks. But on the opposite side, you got Jared Goff, who can do exactly the same thing. I'm sure Cunyato knows about that as well.
I do know about that. Yeah, that sounds so familiar.
I don't know. Something is telling me Tampa Bay. And maybe it's just because I enjoyed that game the most. It just was so fun. So I'm gonna ride with them.
Santana, you want to go next? You want me to go next?
You go next.
Okay. This is another. I think my heart and head are in agreement. I think that the Lions are a more complete overall team. I think that the Bucks defense is better. And obviously the receiving core is insane, but I just think top to bottom, 11 on 11, the Lions are better. And I am pulling for the Lions now that they have officially put my team out of the playoffs. And I mean, shit. Like, wouldn't it be cool to see the Lions go to a championship game, like a game of meaning? Like, obviously, yes, the Super Wildcard round and beating the Rams, that's a game of meaning. But, like, I don't know. I'd kind of like to see him do the damn thing. So I'm going with the Lions here.
I don't know, Kenyatta, if I necessarily believe that the entire roster for Detroit is better than Tampa's. What I will say that I know for a fact is better, for a fact seems too strong, but what I think is better is the Lions' ability to run the ball. Between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that that's something that in the game against y'all, in games plenty of times this year when Detroit has been able to run first, play action, which is, I mean, that's just football in general. But if Detroit can come in, or hosting Tampa, if Detroit can start that game and be able to run against Tampa, which we just saw them negate Philadelphia's run game. If Detroit can come in there and run the football, I think that the Lions win, and that's where I'm going and pulling for. We've all got a close friend who's unfortunately a Lions fan, and I hope for nothing but good things for him and his family, and this would be yet another blessing on the year of Howell.
All right, and then the very last one is the Chiefs at the Bills.
This one is absolutely tough because both of these teams played very well, not only last week but have kind of ended the season playing very well. And it's one of those heart and head are in two different places, like you, Kenyatta. My heart says Buffalo finally does it. Josh Allen finally gets out of gets past the Chiefs and gets, but my head's thinking Kansas City. Especially with the history, just Kansas City has owned them, and my head's thinking that they continue to own them even at Buffalo. So I'm gonna go KC. But I will not be disappointed if I'm wrong.
There's a clip of, I think it was last year's playoff game, Buffalo and Kansas City, and Mahomes and Allen hug, and Mahomes says, "We're going to do this a lot," and it may have been last year before, but I think that is something that we are destined to see. I think Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are going to do this playoff dance a whole bunch of times.
The new Brady and Manning.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it. They're extremely fun to watch. The games always seem to be explosive. I'm going Buffalo in this game. I like the heat that Kansas City picked up last week. But the Bills have been they've been a snowball rolling downhill for the last few weeks. And so where your heart was, Normie, as far as this is the year that Josh Allen does it, that's kind of where I'm leaning. Like, it wouldn't, I think that it's going to be, and obviously we can get into these picks next week, but we're going to be looking at a Bills-Ravens AFC Championship, and this may be the year that Josh pushes over the hump and gets into the Super Bowl.
I have no heart lean on this game. Well, actually, maybe I do. I don't care for Josh Allen. Once again, we're gonna have to start tweeting at him. See if we can't get him on the show. There's something about the Chiefs DNA that I just can't deny, though, and that is head. And in my heart, I have nothing against the Chiefs, but just once again, that they just don't seem to lose since Patrick Mahomes has taken over. So I think I got to go KC here. And so yeah, I'll take the Chiefs. And if the Bills win, fuck you, Josh Allen.
All right.
I
At
really
Josh
hope
Allen.
that me and him never have to meet face to face. He's a
Well,
large man.
Be face to belly button.
Yeah, that's about right.
Sorry, I could not resist that one. You
No,
you
that's a good
softball
one.
tossed that one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
But anyway, another good show and another good weekend of football to watch. I actually, normally I'm not a big NFL playoffs fan, but this year I definitely have been tuning in and had a lot of fun doing it. So I can't wait for these games, and it seems like we'll be back here next week. Same time, same day, same place.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. All right. If you're watching, thanks for everybody who has been watching, and for those who possibly watching on a replay, just we ask if you can give us a like, maybe a subscribe, and check us out Thursday nights at 7 Central. That'll be 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So yeah, we'll see everybody later.
Later.
Later.